Watching it, it's an absolute travesty. Again, another constitutional travesty.
It sure is. And, you know, this week everybody's buzzing about the whole impeachment possibility.
Yeah.
The Democrats were able to raise a ton of money, scaring and trying to energize their base, trying to tell them that, look, the Republicans are definitely going to impeach the president. And if you look at it from President Obama's point of view, it's his only play. He believes that he's got to do something to energize the base. And now he and so many of the leading Democrats are touting impeachment as a real possibility, while it is Republicans who are downplaying that possibility and saying, no, we're not going to go ahead and do it. You even have folks in the Wall Street Journal, both an editorial and an op-ed by Karl Rove, saying this is going to be suicide if we go forward with impeachment. We shouldn't even talk about it. Even Charles Krauthammer was out on Fox News saying, listen, if the president issues an executive action whereby he legalizes some of the illegals, 5 million illegals who have anchor babies, basically, just, you know, by his own authority, tries to legalize them. Charles Krauthammer said that would, quote unquote, be impeachable, but we shouldn't impeach anyways because that's political suicide.
And how is it? Educate me. How is it political suicide if he legalizes 5 million people and just by executive action? And by the way, aren't executive orders, couldn't that be rescinded by the very next president on the first day of office?
Yes, it sure can. It absolutely sure can. And in fact, one of the things the Republicans are pushing for, and it's the conservatives that really demanded it, is what they want in the bill on immigration now is to say, we've got to reverse what the president did on the Dreamers. And that's the only way to stop the flow. That is to say, even if you're a minor and you're here illegally, you can't be given status. So Congress is trying right now to put a block to what appears to be the magnet drawing those minors in. But you know what's interesting, Carl, is this. Look, this is the key point. They are so afraid of impeachment talk, and they are so afraid. I'm talking about the Republicans now, even leading commentators. They don't ask the question, is the president worthy of impeachment, yes or no? And they pretend that they can predict the future. Mm-hmm. How do they know if it's going to be political suicide?
Right.
Nobody knows. The only thing that we can say as analysts is, are the president's actions impeachable? And if so, it is our duty to advocate for that. Now, somebody like Charles Krauthammer says, well, listen, when we tried to impeach Bill Clinton, it didn't work, and then we lost subsequent elections. Who cares? The point is, did Bill Clinton commit crimes that warranted the House action to impeach him? And the answer is clearly he did. And for the rest of history, as long as American history is written, along Bill Clinton's name will be an asterisk. And that asterisk is the voices, it represents the voices of all those of us who stood up, Carl Gallups, myself, and thousands of others, millions of others, who said Bill Clinton's actions were unlawful. And history has recorded our dissent. That's just as it's more important than winning an election, because we stood for what is right. And I'm sick and tired of these beltway pundits analyzing things, A, as though they can predict the future, and B, even if their prophecies are correct, who cares?
Right.
We have to do what is right.
Yeah.
And if it leads us to lose an election, so be it. What it means is this. It means that the president can energize his base, and it would mean that our base is not energized enough.
Right.
So let the president drum up impeachment talk to get his base out, and let us do what we need to do to get our base out. That's what an election is.
Right.
And if our base fails to respond to the call, well, guess what? I know I did my duty. You know you did your duty. And it's on all those who didn't. It's on their conscience. You know, on my deathbed, I'm not going to say, oh, gee, I wish I didn't advocate for Bill Clinton's impeachment because we lost a couple of elections after that.
Right.
I'm gonna meet my maker saying, Lord, I tried always to uphold the truth. I tried always to be patriotic. I tried always to uphold the Constitution. And let your will be done.
Right. And that's why you and I get along so well, because that's been my mantra from the beginning, to do what is right. I want our constitutional republic back. I would love to see America's trust and faith in God restored. But we've got to do our part. We've got to do our part. So yes, no, you and I agree on that philosophically. But let me ask you, now this talk about suing, Congress suing the president, I was just a few moments quoting to the audience from the Daily Caller from a Florida law professor who says Congress probably can't sue the president. She says that the Supreme Court has severely restricted the congressional standing of suing a president. And so what do you know about that? What do you say about that? What are folks in Washington saying about this talk of suing the president?
Suing the president, by and large, the Beltway pundits, including some legal scholars, are saying that it's a very, very good move because recently the Supreme Court is beginning to handcuff the president and say that he's behaving unconstitutionally.
Right.
So the Wall Street Journal, for example, really is applauding that, and that's backed with a lot of learning. They believe that a lawsuit can be fruitful, and they think that in the long run is even more fruitful than any of this impeachment talk. Because they believe that if the Supreme Court weighs in against this president, it is such a stinging rebuke of his signature law that it ultimately humiliates him before the American public in a way that it's really hung on him. One of the things that everybody fears is that an impeachment strategy can rebound possibly against Republicans because they come across as possibly the villains in the piece. Whereas if you just focus on what the president is doing like a lawsuit does, it makes him the culprit. It puts the focus on him.
Okay.
So that's why many Republican strategists and many leading people in Washington, D.C. say that's the way to go. And think about it. If the lawsuit prevails, it really means that what Obama did by delaying the employer mandate, by tinkering with Obamacare, was illegal. And it really is trying to kill this administration with the death of 1,000 legal cuts.
All right, let me ask.
Handcuff him, curtail him in every single direction. And you know what? A lawsuit that is victorious could ultimately be used as part of an impeachment crusade. So some folks are saying, you know what? Our base needs to tamper down the impeachment talk because let us try to win in November 1st, not give the Democrats any ammo. And then when we really have power, especially with strong majorities in the House and possibly in the Senate, then if we want to, we can wield the stick of impeachment.
Okay.
But let's not talk about it now. That's kind of the majority of the pundits in D.C., a lot of the chattering class, that's the strategy they would like us all to pursue. Basically, they want you and I to shut up about impeachment.
Okay, well, let me ask this. So if we sue the president because he's not enforcing the laws or illegally manipulating the Obamacare and the mandates, et cetera, are you there, Dr. Grace? Dr. Grace? Well, we think the NSA is messing with us. What do you think, Dr. Grace?
It could be.
It could be. Well, anyway, so what happened before the NSA so rudely interrupted us was that we were talking about this Obama, impeachment or suing and the ins and outs and ups and downs. But the bottom line, I wanted to ask you, so we sue Obama, and basically the suit is about him failing to enforce laws and kind of inventing laws as he went along, especially with Obamacare and the mandates, et cetera, employer mandates. But couldn't that backfire? What if we win the suit, which means he must enforce the laws properly, which then means he must enforce Obamacare? Because right now, Obamacare is law of the land. Couldn't that backfire on us?
Well, look, it's a bit of a political risk because what eventually will happen is exactly what you say. It means then that the bill will have to be enacted in its totality. But this is the problem. The bill is completely unrealistic. That's why Obama had to wield these executive actions. And there's been so much pushback by employers, meaning that if we do this, it's going to send the economy back into a recession. So as much as it means, yes, we're going to have to try to enact it in full, but there's going to be political backlash. The reason that Obama had to amend it 39 times and counting is because the bill is unworkable.
Right.
So as much as it's a risk, it's an even bigger problem for the administration But in the long term, if we win the suit, it does restore the checks and balance of the Constitution, the separation of powers. It starts to right the wrongs. It doesn't fix everything, but it starts to right the wrongs. And even if Obamacare is going to have to be implemented in full, as the backlash grows, eventually that law is going to be repealed.
Yeah.
And remember, there are other suits against Obamacare. It's not just this one.
Right.
So it's still being whittled down piece by piece.
Okay. Well,
It's ultimately, I believe that ultimately the law is unworkable. Nobody crafted it skillfully enough. They just wanted to do a big victory lap.
Oh, yeah.
And, the law is completely